The rain-slicked streets of San Francisco gleamed like shattered glass under the sodium glow of street lamps, and Ethan slammed the car door so hard it echoed off the Victorian row houses like a gunshot. "You think you can just ghost me after everything?" he roared, his voice cracking like thunder, face twisted in a mask of fury and something far more fragile, betrayal. Andrew froze mid-step on the cracked sidewalk, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs, the weight of the secret he'd buried for months suddenly clawing its way up his throat. Andrew had always known Ethan was the kind of guy who collected people like trophies, shiny, loyal, and utterly disposable when they no longer fit his narrative. They'd met freshman year at UC Berkeley, two wide-eyed kids from opposite coasts. Andrew, the quiet artist from a sleepy suburb in Ohio, sketching feverishly in the corners of crowded lecture halls. Ethan, the charismatic poli-sci major from a sprawling Marin County estate, with his easy laugh and a Rolodex of connections that made him feel invincible. What started as late-night study sessions devolved into something messier. Stolen kisses in the stacks of the Doe Library, hands fumbling under flannel shirts during protests on Sproul Plaza, whispered promises that tasted like cheap beer and rebellion. By senior year, they were inseparable, or so Andrew thought. Ethan called it our thing, a casual label that kept things light, uncommitted, the way he liked it. Andrew swallowed the ache, convinced love was a marathon, not a sprint. He painted portraits of Ethan in secret, those sharp cheekbones, the hazel eyes that shifted like tide pools, and hung them in his cramped off-campus apartment like talismans. Ethan never noticed, or if he did, he never said. Instead, he dragged Andrew to house parties in the Haight, where the air hummed with indie folk and the faint tang of weed, introducing him as my boy Andy, the genius with a brush. It was at one of those parties, 6 months after graduation, that the fracture lines began to show. They'd both landed in the city proper. Andrew scraping by as a barista at a Mission District cafe while freelancing murals for hipster startups. Ethan climbing the ladder at a boutique PR firm in Soma, schmoozing tech bros over oat milk lattes. The rent was a killer, but the buzz of the city kept them afloat. Or so Andrew believed until the night Ethan came home late, reeking of bourbon and someone else's cologne, collapsing onto their thrift store couch with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Babe," Ethan slurred, pulling Andrew down beside him. "You gotta meet this guy. Jake. My buddy from the firm. Total catch, 6'3", surfer vibes, and he's got this killer podcast on Queer Lit. You'd love him." Andrew's stomach twisted, but he played it cool, tracing lazy circles on Ethan's thigh. "Sounds great. Double date." Ethan laughed. Too loud. Too sharp. "Nah, just you two. Get you out of your shell. You know, I'm slammed with work anyway." The invitation landed like a polite grenade. Andrew stared at the text from Ethan 2 days later. "Jake's down for drinks Friday at the Page. 8 p.m. Don't flake." No emoji. No follow-up. Andrew paced their one-bedroom in the Castro, the walls papered with faded band posters and his own half-finished canvases, the kind that bled reds and blues like open wounds. Was this a test? A joke? Or worse, pity? Ethan had been pulling away for weeks, canceling plans with excuses about deadlines, his phone buzzing incessantly with notifications from apps Andrew pretended not to notice. Grindr. Scruff. The ghosts in Ethan's pocket. Friday came like a hangover. Andrew showered twice, scrubbing until his skin stung, choosing a faded Levi's jacket and boots polished to a shine. He told himself it was harmless, a blind date, adulting in the big city. But as he stepped into the page, a dimly lit bookstore bar hybrid where shelves groaned under hardcovers and the air smelled of aged paper and espresso, his resolve frayed. Jake was there already, perched at the corner booth like he'd stepped out of an Abercrombie catalog. Tousled blonde hair, a dimpled smile, button-down rolled to his elbows revealing forearms etched with nautical tattoos. "Andrew? Dude, Ethan's told me all about you. Artist, right? That's rad." They ordered IPAs and talked shop. Jake's podcast episodes on Baldwin and White. Andrew's latest mural for a queer youth center in the Tenderloin. Laughter came easy, unforced, and for the first time in months, Andrew felt seen, not as Ethan's shadow but as himself. Jake's knee brushed his under the table, lingering just long enough to spark. By closing time, they were stumbling out onto Divisadero, the fog rolling in like a velvet curtain, and Jake's hand found the small of Andrew's back. "Wanna grab late-night pho? My treat." Andrew hesitated, phone heavy in his pocket. No texts from Ethan. No check-ins. Go for it, he thought, the words tasting bitter. What are you waiting for? They ended up at a hole-in-the-wall on Geary, slurping noodles under fluorescent lights, trading stories about bad hookups and worse exes. Jake leaned in across the sticky formica, eyes crinkling. "Ethan's lucky, you know, to have a guy like you." Andrew's laugh caught in his throat. "Lucky, right? He didn't go home that night." Jake's place was a converted warehouse in Dogpatch, exposed brick, succulents dangling from macrame, a king bed piled with throw pillows that smelled like sea salt and sandalwood. They tumbled into it slow at first, tentative kisses giving way to urgency, bodies mapping each other like uncharted coastlines. Andrew's mind raced. Guilt, thrill, a hollow ache for the man who'd pushed him here. Jake was gentle, attentive, whispering praises that made Andrew's chest crack open. Afterward, tangled in sheets, Jake traced the curve of Andrew's hip. "This doesn't have to be a one-off. You know." Morning light filtered through loft windows, gilding the dust motes. Andrew slipped out before Jake woke, leaving a note on the nightstand. "Last night was amazing. Let's talk soon." He walked the 8 blocks to the BART, the city waking around him, joggers in neon, baristas flipping signs to open. His phone buzzed as the train rattled toward the Castro. "Ethan. How'd it go, Bill?" Andrew typed back, fingers numb. "Great. Thanks for the setup." No response. "Not then. Anyway." The days blurred into a tentative rhythm. Andrew and Jake texted nonstop, memes about bad poetry slams, invites to gallery openings in Hayes Valley. Their second date was a hike up Twin Peaks, the city sprawling below like a glittering promise, wind whipping their scarves as they shared a thermos of spiked cider. Jake kissed him at the summit, fierce and sure, and Andrew let himself fall, just a little. Ethan, meanwhile, played the oblivious wingman, dropping casual questions over takeout burritos. "Jake treating you right? Man's a keeper." Andrew nodded, forcing smiles, the lie settling like sediment in his gut. But cracks spiderwebbed through the facade. Late one night, scrolling Instagram in bed while Ethan snored beside him, Andrew stumbled on a photo. Jake and Ethan, arms slung around each other at a rooftop bar in the financial district, captions reading brothers before. Well, you know. The timestamp? 2 weeks before the setup. Andrew's blood ran cold. Had this been planned? A game? He confronted Ethan the next morning over coffee in their sun-drenched kitchenette. Mugs steaming on the butcher block counter. "What the hell? Man? You and Jake. Were you already?" Ethan blinked. All innocence. Setting down his chronicle. "Hooking up? Nah, bro. Just friends." "Why? You jealous?" The word hung there. Poisonous. Andrew's vision tunneled. "You set me up with him. Like I'm some charity case." Ethan's laugh was a blade. "Lighten up. Thought you'd hit it off. And hey, looks like you did." Andrew stormed out, the door banging like an accusation. He crashed at a friend's sublet in No Valley, sketching furiously until his fingers cramped. Portraits of fractured faces. Lovers turning away. Jake called that afternoon, voice warm through the speaker. "Missed you at the poetry slam last night." "Everything cool." Andrew wanted to spill it all, but the words stuck. Instead, he met Jake for drinks at a dive in the Mission. Neon signs buzzing Corona and tequila. Mariachi tunes warbling from the jukebox. They danced, bodies close in the humid dark, and Andrew almost forgot. 2 weeks into whatever this was, tryst, rebellion, escape, Andrew found himself at Jake's warehouse again, the industrial hum of the city a distant lullaby. They'd cooked pasta Alfredo from a Food Network recipe, laughing when the sauce curdled, ending up on the floor amid spilled flour and half-eaten garlic bread. Jake's touch was electric, unhurried, drawing confessions from Andrew like threads from a loom. The fear of never being enough. The loneliness of loving someone who treated you like an option. Jake listened, chin propped on his hand. "I soft. You're not an option to me," he murmured, sealing it with a kiss that tasted like basil and hope. But hope was a fragile thing in San Francisco's perpetual fog. Ethan had stopped pretending. Texts went unanswered. Shared spaces felt like minefields. One evening, Andrew came home to find the apartment half empty. Ethan's sneaker collection culled, his vintage tees folded in neat stacks on the couch. "Moving out?" Andrew asked, voice flat, though his pulse thrummed. Ethan shrugged, zipping a duffel. "Crash pad at Jake's for a bit. Firm's got me on this late-night pitch. Figured you'd want space with your new thing." The room tilted. "Jake's?" "Of course." Andrew's laugh was hollow. "You're set up. Remember? Now you're crashing there too." Ethan's jaw tightened, the easy charm fracturing. "Don't make it weird, Andy. It's temporary." But the subtext screamed volumes. This was always mine to control. Andrew watched him leave, the door clicking shut like a period at the end of a sentence he'd never finished writing. That night, alone with the ghosts of their life together, Ethan's half-read The Velvet Rage on the nightstand, Andrew's easel gathering dust, he called Jake. Voicemail. "Hey, it's me. Call when you can, no callback." By midnight, paranoia gnawed. Had Ethan told him? Was this the punchline? Andrew paced the fire escape, staring at the Castro's rainbow crosswalks below, where drag queens in fishnets hawked cigarettes and couples canoodled under cafe awnings. The city pulsed with possibility, but he felt adrift, a sketch half erased. Dawn broke gray and unrelenting. Andrew dragged himself to the cafe, steaming oat milk for hungover techies, his tips jar mocking him with singles crumpled like discarded love notes. Mid-shift, Jake texted, "Sorry, babe. Ethan showed up hammered last night. Couch surfing." "You okay?" Andrew's thumb hovered, rage bubbling. He's at your place? After setting us up? Jake's reply was a knife twist. Didn't know it was a big deal. Brothers, right? Come over tonight, we'll talk. The warehouse felt tainted when Andrew arrived, the succulents mocking him with their verdant cheer. Jake pulled him into a hug, but Ethan was there, sprawled on the leather sectional like he owned it, nursing a Gatorade with a sheepish grin. Hey, Rumi. Awkward. The air thickened, charged with unspoken barbs. They ordered Thai, pad CEW and spring rolls slick with peanut sauce, eating off paper plates on the coffee table, small talk skating over the ice. Jake played mediator, cracking jokes about bad karaoke nights, but Andrew's appetite soured. Ethan's foot nudged his under the table, accidental on purpose, and Andrew jerked away, spilling soy sauce on his jeans. Jesus. Sorry, Ethan muttered, but his eyes gleamed with something predatory. Later, as Jake washed dishes in the galley kitchen, Ethan cornered Andrew by the bookshelf, voice low. You really think Jake's the one? Guy's got commitment issues a mile wide. Podcasts and pretty boys, that's his MO. Andrew's fists clenched. And what's yours? Playing puppet master. Ethan's breath hitched, vulnerability flickering. I did it for you, Andy. To shake things up. Thought it'd make you fight for us. The words landed like embers. Fight? Andrew had been fighting since day one, swallowing doubts, ignoring red flags, painting over the rot. You don't get to decide that, he whispered, voice breaking. You don't get to break us and call it help. Ethan reached for him, fingers grazing his wrist. But Andrew pulled back, the touch burning. Jake emerged then, drying his hands on a dish towel, oblivious. Movie night? Broke back for irony? They demurred, the evening dissolving into polite goodbyes. Andrew fled into the night, the fog swallowing him whole. The next days were a fever dream of avoidance. Andrew threw himself into work, a commission for a Nopa gallery, vibrant abstracts of fractured skylines that bled frustration onto canvas. Jake's texts tapered, busy week. Rain check. Ethan's were sporadic, laced with nostalgia. Remember that time in Big Sur? Missed that. Andrew deleted them unread, but they haunted him, echoes in the empty apartment. He started running at dawn, pounding pavement from the Castro to the Embarcadero, the bay's salt spray stinging his lungs, chasing clarity in the burn. Clarity came unbidden, in the form of a voicemail from a mutual friend, Mia, the tattooed barista who'd witnessed their college courtship. Andrew, honey, you gotta watch out. Ethan's been trash-talking Jake at the firm, says you're confused, that he's just a rebound. Stirring shit. Call me. Andrew's world narrowed to a pinpoint. Betrayal, layered and insidious. He confronted Jake over FaceTime, screen glowing blue in his dim bedroom. Did you know about Ethan bad-mouthing us? Jake's face crumpled, pixels blurring his regret. He mentioned stuff, but I shut it down. Thought it was jealousy. You know? Old flames. Old flames. The phrase ignited something feral. Andrew ended the call, heart hammering, and drove to the warehouse in Ethan's borrowed Civic, the one with the cracked sunroof and mixtapes of the National. He found them in the living room, Jake on the couch, Ethan pacing, mid-argument, voices raised over a spilled beer. You told him what? Jake snapped, spotting Andrew. Ethan whirled, color draining. Andy, it's not. But Andrew cut him off, voice steel. Save it. I know everything. The setup, the sabotage. You jealous yet? The room stilled, the only sound the distant wail of a cable car. Ethan's eyes, those tide pool hazel, welled. I didn't mean fuck. I love you. Okay. Seeing you with him. It gutted me. Love. The word. Weaponized. Andrew laughed. Bitter as black coffee. Too late for that. He turned to Jake, the man who'd been collateral in this mess. You deserve better than his games. We both do. Jake nodded, silent, the weight of complicity heavy. Andrew walked out, keys jangling, the door slamming like a guillotine. He didn't go home. Instead, he checked into a cheap motel off Lombard, the kind with thin walls and a neon vacancy sign flickering like a migraine. Curled on the lumpy bed, TV murmuring infomercials, he cried ugly, wrenching sobs that shook his frame. For Ethan, the boy who'd made him believe in forever. For Jake, the almost that curdled into regret. For himself, the freedom he'd craved but never known how to claim. Morning brought resolve, sharp as shattered glass. Andrew packed the apartment in a frenzy, canvas totes stuffed with clothes, art supplies, the portrait of Ethan he'd hidden in a drawer, its eyes accusing. He left a note on the fridge, magnetic poetry words rearranged. You broke the bond. I'm choosing me. Then he was gone, subletting the place to Mia, crashing on her futon in no until he found his feet. Freedom tasted like uncertainty, endless auditions for graphic design gigs, open mics at the Mint where his spoken word pieces dripped raw ache, attracting a crowd of misfits who nodded like they got it. Jake reached out once, a hesitant hope you're good, but Andrew let it fade. Ethan bombarded him, voicemails thick with pleas, texts dissolving into I fucked up. Come back. Andrew blocked the number, but the pull lingered, a phantom limb. It was at an art crawl in the Dogpatch Arts District, galleries spilling light onto warehouse streets, throngs of flannel-clad millennials sipping boxed wine, that the threads tangled again. Andrew's pieces hung in a pop-up space, bold strokes of indigo and gold capturing the city's restless soul. He was mid-conversation with a curator, effusing about influences Willem de Kooning meets queer theory when he felt it, that prickle at his nape. Ethan, across the room, nursing a plastic cup, eyes locked like heat-seeking missiles. Ethan looked wrecked, unshaven jaw shadowed blue, his usual preppy button-down rumpled, sleeves rolled to expose wrists Andrew once kissed in the quiet hours. He wove through the crowd with purpose, ignoring the side eyes from mutuals who'd heard the whispers. Andrew's curator trailed off, sensing the storm, murmuring excuses about checking on the cheese board. Then it was just them, the air between crackling like live wire, the thrum of a lo-fi band underscoring the tension. Andrew, Ethan started, voice rough, like he'd smoked a pack chasing sleep. We need to talk. Andrew's grip tightened on his stemless glass, Merlot sloshing perilously close to the rim. No. We don't. But his feet betrayed him, following Ethan out a side door to the alley, where graffiti-tagged walls loomed and the scent of rain-damp asphalt mingled with distant garlic from food trucks. Dumpsters overflowed with crumpled flyers, a stray cat eyeing them warily from a fire escape. Ethan leaned against the brick, lighting a cigarette with trembling hands, a habit Andrew thought he'd quit. I get it. I'm the villain here. Setup was stupid, jealous as fuck. But walking away, that's not you. Smoke curled from his lips, ghosting the sodium light. Andrew's laugh was sharp. Edged. Not me? You don't know me anymore, Ethan. If you ever did. The words hung, heavy as the fog rolling in from the bay. Ethan exhaled, flicking ash. I know the guy who sketched me sleeping after that all-nighter cramming for midterms. The one who dragged me to that god-awful drag brunch in the Castro just to see me laugh. That's you. His voice cracked on the last, vulnerability peeling back the bravado. Andrew's chest ached. Memories flooding. Lazy Sundays at Tartine. Croissants flaking onto newsprint as they debated moonlight over lattes. Road trips to Yosemite. Ethan's hand on his thigh as they blasted Springsteen. Pines blurring past. Good times. Gilded, but rotten at the core. You used me, Andrew said quietly, the truth a blade he finally wielded. Set me up like a pity project, then sabotaged it when it worked. Why? Scared I'd leave first. Ethan's cigarette dropped, sparking on the wet pavement. He stepped closer, too close, the heat of him invading Andrew's space. Yeah. Terrified. You're the real deal, Andy. Jake, he's fun. Easy. But you see through the bullshit. Make me want to be better. Andrew's resolve wavered, the pull magnetic. Ethan's hand cupped his jaw, thumb brushing stubble, and for a heartbeat, Andrew leaned in, lips parting on a sigh. The kiss was fire, desperate, devouring, tongues tangling with the fury of unspoken grief. Hands roamed, Ethan's in Andrew's hair, tugging just right. Andrew's fisting Ethan's shirt, bunching fabric like he could wring out the lies. It was absolution and damnation, the alley spinning as they pressed against the wall, breaths mingling in ragged harmony. But then clarity, cold as the brick at his back. Andrew shoved him away, gasping, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. No. This isn't fixing it. Ethan's eyes widened, pupils blown wide. What? That was muscle memory? Andrew cut in, voice steadying. Not love. Not anymore. He straightened his jacket, the night's chill seeping in. Go back to Jake. Play your games. I'm done being the pawn. Ethan's face crumpled, a raw wound. Please. I can't lose you. But Andrew was already walking, alley shadows swallowing his silhouette, the art crawl's murmur fading behind. He didn't look back, though every fiber screamed to. Instead, he wandered the streets, neon reflections dancing in puddles, open 24/7, tacos El Gordo, until he found himself at the pier, waves lapping the pilings like impatient fingers. He sat on a bench, staring at Alcatraz's silhouette, the city's lights a constellation of what-ifs. The fallout rippled. Jake called the next day, voice tentative over the crackle of bad cell service. He was up in wine country for a friend's wedding. Ethan crashed hard last night. Told me everything. I'm out, man. For real. Andrew murmured sympathies, but relief washed through him, clean as a tide. No more triangles, just the straight line of self. He threw a solo party that weekend. Mia and a posse of cafe regulars, blasting Chapel Roan on the sublet stereo, dancing barefoot on the hardwood until sweat-slick and breathless. Someone, a lanky photographer named Riley with ink-stained fingers, kissed him at midnight, soft and exploratory, but Andrew pulled back with a gentle smile. Not yet, he said. Healing first. Work became his anchor. The gallery show sold 3 pieces, Enough for first month's rent on a studio in Bernal Heights. A sunlit area with bay views and walls begging for color. Andrew painted like a man possessed. Series on liberation. Figures emerging from cocoons of shadow. Wings tentative but unfurling. Critics in the SF Examiner called it a queer odyssey of the soul, and invites trickled in panels at the LGBT History Museum, collabs with local poets. For the first time, success felt like his, untainted. Ethan, though, lingered like a bruise. Postcards arrived, one from Joshua Tree, scrawled thinking of our stargazing. Miss you. Another from Portland. Rain here reminds me of that fight in Golden Gate Park. Andrew pinned them to a corkboard, not as mementos but warnings, reminders of the cycle. Mia warned him too. Over vegan burgers at a no-pa spot, he's spiraling. Quit the firm. Talking about grad school back east. Says it's to find himself. Translation. Chase you. Andrew waved it off. But doubt crept in during quiet nights, when the city hushed and his mind replayed the alley kiss on loop. Was freedom just loneliness in disguise? He tested the waters at a speed dating event in the Castro, rainbow flags snapping in the breeze, clipboards clutched like shields. Matches sparked. A baritone named Carlos with a laugh like thunder. A quiet engineer called Theo who quoted Rumi. Coffee dates followed. Tentative forays into normalcy. But none stuck. Shadows of Ethan in their gestures. The breaking point came mid-autumn. Leaves turning the Presidio gold under a rare blue sky. Andrew was sketching en plein air. Charcoals smudging his jeans. When his phone lit up, unknown number. He answered on impulse. Andrew, it's Jake. The voice was steadier now, laced with finality. Ethan's. Not okay. Showed up at my folks in Tahoe last week. Drunk, ranting about you. I had to call his sister. Thought you should know. Guilt punched low. Andrew drove north that afternoon. The Sierra Nevada rising like jagged teeth. Radio crooning Lucinda Williams. Tahoe's shores glittered under overcast skies. Pines whispering secrets. Ethan's sister, Lena, a no-nonsense ER nurse with Ethan's eyes but none of his charm, met him at the cabin, A-frame nestled by fallen leaf lake. He won't talk to me, she said, handing over a thermos of coffee. But you? Maybe. Ethan was on the dock, bundled in a parka, skipping stones across the water's glassy surface. He didn't turn at Andrew's footsteps, but his shoulders tensed. Knew you'd come, he muttered, voice muffled by wind. Andrew sat beside him, the wood creaking, ripples spreading from the last stone. Not for you. For me. Closure. They sat in silence, the lake a mirror for their wreckage. Finally, Ethan spoke, words tumbling like loose gravel. I was scared, of how much I needed you. Setting you up with Jake. It was supposed to push you away, make it your choice. But when you chose him, God, it hollowed me out. Andrew listened, the confession a bomb and a barb. You could have talked. Instead, you orchestrated the end. Ethan nodded, tears carving tracks down wind-chapped cheeks. I know. I'm sorry doesn't cut it, but it's all I got. He pulled a small box from his pocket, velvet, worn, flipping it open to reveal a ring, simple silver with intertwined bands. Not proposing, just promise. If you ever want it. Andrew's throat closed. The ring glinted, symbol of what might have been. He closed the box gently, placing it back in Ethan's palm. Keep it. For the guy who deserves your whole self. He stood, the dock swaying slightly. I forgive you. But I can't be your anchor anymore. Ethan's sob broke the quiet, raw and unrestrained. Andrew walked away, the crunch of gravel under boots a metronome to his heartbeat, leaving the man he'd loved to the mercy of mountains and memory. Winter clamped down on San Francisco like a vice. Gale-force winds howling through the financial district canyons, tourists huddling under Alcatraz hoodies as they boarded ferries. Andrew's studio became a cocoon, canvases leaning like sentinels, the air thick with turpentine and takeout containers. He painted through the ache. Winter's capes of bare branches clawing at leaden skies, figures huddled against the blast, seeking warmth in each other's outlines. Critics ate it up. A solo show at the SOM Arts Cultural Center loomed in February, promises of spotlights and sales whispers that drowned out the echo of Ethan's sobs. Riley, the photographer from Mia's party, re-entered the frame like a soft-focus Polaroid. They met at a queer book club in the Mission, discussing Less by Andrew Sean Greer over chamomile tea and lemon bars, bonding over shared cynicism about happy endings. Riley was wiry, with a mop of chestnut curls and a cannon slung perpetual around his neck, capturing candids of the group mid-laugh. You're photogenic, he told Andrew later, as they strolled 24th Street, to carry a spilling, salsa-scented steam. Let me shoot you sometime? The session happened on a crisp January morning at Baker Beach, dunes rolling gold under tentative sun. The bridge's red span a distant arc. Andrew posed reluctant at first, boots sinking in sand, jacket flapping like wings, then loosened, wind tousling his dark hair, eyes squinting against the glare. Riley clicked away, directing with gentle commands. Tilt your head. Yeah, like you're remembering something sweet. Between frames, they talked. Riley's ex in Seattle, a painter who'd ghosted mid-residency. Andrew's guarded allusions to a bad breakup. Laughter bridged the gaps, easy as the tide pulling in. That night, over ramen at a hole-in-the-wall in Japantown, Riley's knee pressed Andrew's under the low table, a question unspoken. Andrew met it halfway, their first kiss tasting of miso and possibility, slow burn sweet. No rush, no wreckage, just two men navigating the shallows, hands tentative on thighs, breaths sinking like a well-rehearsed duet. They tumbled back to Riley's flat in Hayes Valley, a third-floor walk-up with creaky floors and windows overlooking painted ladies, the city a hush below. Making love was exploration. Riley's fingers tracing Andrew's collarbones like mapping constellations, Andrew's lips charting the freckles dusting Riley's chest. Afterward, spooned under a quilt stitched with star patterns, Riley murmured, "No pressure. Just, this feels right." It did. Mornings blurred into routines. Shared jogs up the Leon Street steps, gasping at the panoramic views. Lazy brunches at Zazie, Eggs Benedict dripping yolk as they debated Scorsese versus Tarantino. Riley shot Andrew's show prep, candid rolls of him glazing frames, sweat beading on his brow, and the images hung in the gallery's promo packet. Intimate glimpses that drew murmurs of authenticity from previews. Ethan became a specter, fading to occasional pings on social. A LinkedIn update, enrolling at Columbia, new chapter. A tagged photo from a NYC dive bar, arm around a faceless bro. Andrew scrolled past, thumb swiping clean. But scars itched. One February Eve, pre-opening jitters gnawing, Andrew found himself at the Page, the bookstore bar of fateful setup, nursing a whiskey neat, the shelves a comforting labyrinth. Mia slid onto the stool beside him, her sleeve tattoos peeking from a leather jacket. "You look like hell." "Nerves?" Andrew nodded, swirling amber. "More like ghosts." She squeezed his arm. "Ethan called me last week. Sounded wrecked. Asked if you're happy." Andrew's glass paused midair. "And," Mia shrugged. "Told him it's none of his beeswax." "But you are, right? With the camera guy." He thought of Riley's laugh, the way he'd framed Andrew's vulnerability without exploiting it. "Yeah, I am." The admission settled, solid as the oak bar. They toasted to fresh starts, the clink echoing like permission. Opening night was electric. SOM Arts buzzing with the city's queer elite, drag performers in full glam, activists in slogan tees, collectors with checkbooks at the ready. Andrew wore a tailored blazer over a silk shirt, unbuttoned just enough to hint at the ink Riley had photographed, a small wave curling his pec, tribute to the bay's relentless pull. Riley hovered, snapping candids, his pride a quiet glow. Sales tallied 6 figures by close. Wait, no, 6 pieces, but the checks felt like vindication. In the after-party haze at a nearby speakeasy, velvet booths, jazz standards crooning from hidden speakers, a face from the past materialized. Jake, leaner, with a fresh undercut and a IPA in hand. "Heard about the show. Killer stuff. No awkwardness, just genuine warmth." They talked shop, Jake's podcast pivoting to mental health chats, post-Ethan therapy epiphanies. "He was toxic, man. For both of us. Glad you got out." Andrew clinked bottles. "Water under the bridge. Or over it." Jake grinned, clapping his shoulder before vanishing into the crowd. Riley found him later, pulling him onto the dim dance floor, bodies swaying to Norah Jones. "Proud of you," he whispered, lips brushing Andrew's ear. The words unlocked something, tears pricking, hot and unbidden. Andrew buried his face in Riley's neck, inhaling cedar and clean sweat. "Love you," he breathed, the confession slipping free like a held breath. Riley stilled, then cupped his face, thumbs swiping damp cheeks. "Yeah, 'cause I love you too, artist boy." Spring unfurled gentle. Cherry blossoms dusting the Presidio paths pink. Farmers' markets in the ferry building overflowing with heirloom tomatoes and sourdough bowls. Andrew and Riley road trip to Big Sur, their spot. Reclaimed. Camping under sequoias. Fireflies winking as they made esmores and slow love in a tent pitched to the surf's roar. No echoes of Ethan. Just the now. Riley's shutter-clicking dawn light on Andrew's sleeping form. Andrew sketching Riley's profile against crashing waves. Yet, the universe, capricious, conspired a final twist. A gallery email pinged in late April. An invite to a queer arts summit in New York. All expenses. Panel on love and loss in contemporary narrative. Andrew's piece Fractured Tides, the one born of alley anguish, featured in the catalog. Riley hooped, booking flights on points. Empire State Adventure. JFK's bustle hit like culture shock after SFO's chill vibe, horns blaring. Sidewalks a frenzy of suits and street vendors hawking pretzels. Their Airbnb was a cozy walk-up in the West Village. Exposed brick and a fire escape strung with Edison bulbs. The summit kicked off at the Strand. Towering shelves, a bibliophile's fever dream. Panels packed with luminaries. A trans poet from Brooklyn. A non-binary filmmaker from LA. Andrew's talk. Raw, unscripted, drew nods. Questions pouring post. How do you alchemize betrayal into beauty? Post panel. Buzz carried them to a rooftop bar in Chelsea. Skyline glittering like fool's gold. That's when Ethan appeared, ghost made flesh. Nursing a Manhattan at the railing. Columbia hoodie swapped for a slim-fit Oxford. Their eyes met across the crowd. A jolt like static. Andrew froze. Riley's hand warm on his waist. X. Riley murmured, clocking it. Andrew nodded, numb. The one. Ethan approached cautious, like approaching a skittish doe. Saw your name in the program. Had to come. Close. He looked transformed. Lines etched finer around his eyes. A maturity in his posture. Congrats. The work. It's you. All fire. Polite chatter followed. East Coast weather gripes. Columbia's grind. Riley excused himself gracefully, bathroom run, leaving space. Ethan shifted. He seems solid. Happy for you. Andrew searched his face. Hunting traps. None. Just quiet ache. Thanks. Therapy helping. Ethan huffed a laugh. Yeah. And distance. Realized I was running from myself. Dragging you down. The admission hung. Unforced. Andrew exhaled. Growth. Good. Riley returned then. Arm slipping around Andrew's middle. A subtle claim. Ethan extended a hand. Jake. Riley shook. Grin easy. Heard the podcast. Solid stuff on Audre Lorde. Banter flowed. Barriers dissolving over shared rounds. Craft IPAs foamy with head. No drama. Just adults navigating ruins. As the night waned, Ethan raised his glass. To choosing freedom. Andrew met it. Clink resonant. To it. Back in the village Airbnb. Andrew and Riley debriefed on the fire escape. City hum a symphony below. Taxis honking. Laughter spilling from brownstones. Riley lit a joint. Passing it over. Smoke tendrils curling like question marks. That wasn't weird? Andrew took a drag. Coughing lightly. The buzz softening edges. It was. But. Closure. Maybe. Riley nodded. Head on Andrew's shoulder. You're brave as hell. Love watching you bloom. Bloom he did. The summit spawned opportunities. A residency offer from the Leslie Lohman Museum. Commissions from East Coast collectives. Andrew flew solo for the first scouting trip. Riley holding down the bay with a gallery show of his own. Intimate portraits. Andrew's face woven through like a thread. Alone in a Manhattan sublet. Andrew wandered Chelsea galleries. The high lines wild tangles a metaphor for his own wilding heart. He texted Ethan once. Impulsive. Panel question: how do you know when to let go? When holding on hurts more. Ethan's reply: learned that the hard way. Thanks for the reminder. Summer scorched the city golden. Ferry rides to Sausalito with Riley. Picnics in Dolores Park where queer families sprawled on checkered blankets. Kids chasing frisbees while parents swapped stories of surrogacy wins. Andrew's show at SOM Arts toured virtually. Pixels carrying his story to global screens. Fan mail trickling, your work saved me. Humanistic ripples. Proof of impact beyond the personal. But romance, that tender beast, demanded tending. Riley's wanderlust surfaced mid-July. A gig shooting a dock in Iceland. 3 weeks of glaciers and geysers. Come, he asked over gelato in North Beach, pistachio melting on his spoon. Andrew hesitated, easel calling. Next time. Go capture the aurora for me. The send-off was airport bittersweet. Kisses tasting of security line coffee. Promises pinged across time zones. Northern lights like your eyes, with a photo of green veils draping midnight sky. Solitude amplified growth. Andrew volunteered at the youth center, mentoring teens with brushes and blank pages. A trans kid named Kai, all sharp wit and sharper lines, who painted his transition like a phoenix rising. "How'd you know it was time?" Kai asked one afternoon, acrylics drying on communal tables. Andrew paused, roller in hand, mural of intertwined hands taking shape. When the fear of staying small outweighed the fear of flying, Ethan's orbit stabilized distant. LinkedIn posts of poli-sci seminars, a rare Instagram story of Central Park foliage, tagged grateful. No overtures, just parallel paths. Former lovers become footnotes, their story etched in scar tissue that no longer itched. Jake, too, resurfaced sporadically. A podcast shout-out to Andrew's work, essential listening for the broken-hearted. Fall brought harvest. Andrew's first book deal, a hybrid memoir of essays and sketches, Tides of Us, penned in stolen hours at Tartine, croissant crumbs dusting pages. Riley returned tan and windswept, portfolio bursting with ethereal frames, their reunion a bonfire, bodies reacquainting in the Bernal studio, windows fogged, laughter echoing off fresh-painted walls. The crescendo-crested Thanksgiving, Mia's potluck a raucous affair, turkey brined in apple cider, sides from every corner, collards from her girlfriend's low-country roots, empanadas from a neighbor's abuela. Andrew and Riley arrived arms full, pumpkin pie glazed with bourbon, a bottle of Napa Cab. Toast circled, to kin chosen, to healing's hard won. As plates cleared, Mia pulled Andrew aside in the kitchen, sink sudsing. "Heard from Ethan?" Andrew rinsed a glass, suds bubbling. "Holidays are rough," she nodded. He emailed. "Wants to visit in spring." Neutral ground, coffee, no drama. Andrew considered, the idea less thorn than olive branch. Maybe. If it feels right. Winter wheeled in again, but softer. Holiday lights twinkling the Castro like stars fallen to earth. Tree lightings at Union Square where choirs caroled O Holy Night with queer twists. Andrew and Riley strung their own. A scrub pine on the studio's tiny balcony. Ornaments hand-blown from a Valencia Street glassblower. Waves and anchors. Nods to journeys shared. New Year's dawned crisp. Fireworks blooming over the bay like defiant blooms. They watched from Twin Peaks. Bundled in wool. Riley's camera idle for once. Arms wrapped tight. "Resolutions?" Riley asked, breath fogging. Andrew smiled, chin on knee. "Keep choosing me." "Us." Riley kissed his temple. "Deal." Epilogue whispers in the quiet months after Ethan's visit. Spring rain pattering Embarcadero cafes. 2 hours over flat whites. Stories swapped. Laughs tentative. A hug at goodbye that lingered brotherly, not loverly. Tides of Us hit shelves Memorial Day. Climbing indie lists. Readings packed with faces mirroring Andrew's own. Eyes bright with recognition. Jake guested on a promo pod. Their banter a testament to grace. Years fold like origami. Andrew's murals grace City Hall. Riley's photos grace The New Yorker. They buy a fixer in No, Victorian with a garden plot for tomatoes. A studio shed for creation. Adoption papers ink on a crisp October. A toddler named Leo with Andrew's curls and Riley's dimples. Home from a Marin Foster. Family. forged in fire's afterglow. Freedom wasn't escape. Andrew learns. It's the horizon, ever receding, beckoning bold. And in choosing it, he finds not solitude, but a mosaic of souls. Riley's steady hand, Kai's fierce spark, even Ethan's distant echo. A reminder that love, in all its fractures, humanizes us. In the American sprawl, from foggy piers to canyon hikes, the heart charts its course, unapologetic, unbound. The end? Not just the next stroke on the canvas.